Hi, I'm Josh, and welcome to the Finally Fall book tag. I don't do tags that often, but over the next month or so leading up to Halloween, I'm hoping to do a lot of them, all inspired by the Lockbooktician, who has, I think, 4 or 5 Halloween-themed book tags, and I'm really excited to get to those. But I realized I want them to end on the last week of October, so I decided to pick one to start us off, which I felt like was a good way to introduce us to the fall season. I mean, today is literally the first day of fall. And so we're doing the Finally Fall book tag. The first one is, in fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. I hate vagueness like vivid. What is vivid? And for this one, I decided to go with Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, because while I didn't always love the plot of this book, which is not very much, the actual setting, like, you could really picture it. I mean, maybe it's the cover that helps it, but you could really picture yourself this world where society has broken down and they're trying to survive, and it was just a really vivid description of a setting, and I really liked it. Next up, number 2, nature is beautiful, but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written, but also deals with a heavily, fuck me, I can't read my writing. Name a book that is beautifully written, but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. And for this one, I'm gonna go with Small Game Hunting at a Local Gun Club by Megan Gale Coles. And this is one book that was on the Canada Reads of 2020, and this is why I initially read it. The writing in this is spectacular. It is a work of literary masterpiece, but it's also really difficult to read. Not just because the topics it deals with is really difficult, but because the writing style, while unique, is really disconcerting. It's set in Newfoundland, and she writes in the dialect of the local people there, and it's really disconcerting to anyone who's not from there. It doesn't understand the dialect, but it is still as beautiful as the cover. This is a story that covers one day, even though it's super long, and it follows these group of people who all work or related to, somehow connected to this local restaurant, which I think is called the Local Coward Gun Club or something like that. And it deals with issues with racism, sexism, and homophobia. And it is just such a beautifully written book, if very difficult to get through. Number 3, fall is back to school season. Share a nonfiction book that taught you something new. And well, I could go with Something Deep Ahead, and notice it's not up there, but I've talked about this enough. If you're curious, check out the review. So instead, I'm going to go with the next most educational book of the year, Stand from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, and this is a definitive history of racist ideas in America, starting from the 1600s to today. I talk about this a lot in my Independence Day reading vlog, but I found this to be amazingly educational. Even though it is dense, it is presented in a way that is really easy to follow and really easy to consume, very accessible, which I think is really important for an educational nonfiction book. But it also is just able to tie these ideas as they evolve together so intricately. It's really easy to be able to recognize how some of the most barbaric ideas back in the 1600s, how they slowly morph into the racist ideas of today. And I highly recommend that book to everyone. 4, in order to keep warm, it's good to spend some time with the people we love. I'm in a pandemic. Thanks for reminding me. Name a fictional family, household, friend group that you'd like to be a part of. Okay. When I did this, I picked a book, so I'm going to get the book, but now that I read it again, I realized I could have done any type of fictional family, because quite frankly, I don't read a lot of heartwarming books with families that are very positive. I do remember now that someone picked Harry Potter, not his family, but the Weasleys, which I guess is fair, but I ended up going with Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna McGuire. I think this is book 3 of the Wayward Children series, because this friend group, don't get me wrong, this is why I had trouble with this, because the setting that they're in is very dark. Dark things happen, and I don't know if I want to be a part of that. At the same time, I do. And the friend group itself, like, they're very, I really liked the dynamic that was going on here, and the friends, that how they work with each other. But if I had to pick an actual family, This Is Us has a beautiful family. I mean, I really wanted to pick the friend group from It, but at the same time, I don't want to die. Number 5, the colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. And for this one, I may have went more October, Halloween than fall, but I have here is a beautiful set of orange and red books. First we have Bunny by Mona Awad, which is a horror, almost like cult type book. And then we have Among Others by Joe Walton. This was the first magical realism book that I ever read, and it was beautiful. I've read it twice now. It won a Hugo Award back, I think, in 2014 or 2011. The Ancestors, which is an anthology by Tenerife Dew, Brendan Massey, and L.A. Banks. And quite frankly, I did not like this, if I remember correctly. This one was, in my opinion, too too religious. They leaned really heavy into religious ideas in a way that I felt like were kind of toxic. Things like demonizing sexuality, things I had trouble with. That said, I did like Tanner Reeve Dew's story most of all, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who knows Tanner Reeve Dew. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I think I give that 3 or 4 stars. I had trouble with that one. I loved the tone and the setting. Next up is Cabin in the Woods by Paul Tremblay. This one was dark. I almost picked this one as a vivid setting because it was vivid. Or the family, even the family themselves, like they seem like a beautiful family. But the story itself is so dark. And it's so beautiful. I mean, I love dark books. Time Travel's Almanac, just a shit ton of time travel short stories. I'm still working my way through this. I'll maybe a 4th through it. Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Talked about that before. I love it. Moving on. Fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein somebody is telling a story. There are so many options here, but I decided to go with the one that seems to just come to mind first, which was The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This is a historical fiction book about this book owner who is interviewing, I think, a famous author. Honestly, I forgot already. I remember it being very atmospheric. And I think there was some magical realism in here. I'm not sure. Her second book, which came out, I think, a couple years ago, Once Upon a River, was also very atmospheric, very beautifully written. I could have chosen that for some of these as well, but I didn't want to choose her twice, so I decided to save it for this. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, but I still thought it was beautifully written, and she's not the person I would read again, although she doesn't seem to write books very often. Number 7, The Nights Are Getting Darker. Share a dark and keep you read. A lot of books I could share here, but I had to go with the classic, The Haunting of Hill House by Shauna McGuire, by Shirley Jackson. And this one is like it set up the genre of haunted house. It's like she is the queen of horror. This was so dark and atmospheric. This is one of those stories that you don't know if it's real or if it's just in the mind. And this is just the embodiment of that type of genre, of how it's so done so well. So you're so terrified, regardless if it's real, it's terrifying. Number 8, The Days Are Getting Colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. Another one that I don't read heartwarming books, let alone short books. So I had to really grasp at straws for this one. And I'm going with a very Christmassy one, for A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Technically, this is a very heartwarming ending, so I think we all know what this is about. So I'm not going to get any more into that. Fall returns every year. Name an old favorite that you'd like to return to soon. Now, I already mentioned the Wayward Children series. I'm just going to pull up book 1 because it said specifically short, and this is one series I would like to reread this year before the year is out, especially leading up to the 6th book. Number 10, Fall is the perfect time for cozy reading nights. Share your favorite cozy reading accessories. And I do a lot of my reading biking, and thankfully fall doesn't quite have that much snow, so it's still doable. But if I'm not doing that, I have my Kindle. Specifically, if it's on an audio, I'll use text-to-speech. It's nice. But if I am biking, obviously, I need my helmet. I'm really grasping at straws for this one. My rear light, which I just happen to be charging, the gloves, which I have warmer gloves as it gets colder. Those are my main reading accessories in the fall, to be frank. Also, I have a cap for my head for when it gets really cold, and really thick gloves when it gets even colder. I invested in winter gear, I think it was a year or 2 ago, because I didn't like not biking when it got cold, but it still wasn't snowy yet. And then finally, number 11, spread the autumn appreciation and tag some people. And I checked, I'm pretty sure they haven't done this tag this year at least. And first I'm gonna do Hannah from Hannah's Books. Big fan of her channel, you should absolutely check it out. She does some just amazing conversations there about a range of different topics related to her life and books in general. Next is Erica from The Legendary Reader, who is an author and it seems to be a delightful person. Also check out their page as well. And that concludes this book tag. I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't done this tag, obviously you're tagged as well, although I'm not a big fan of that kind of tagging, but it's done, no taking that back unless I edit it out. Okay, I like to ramble, I hate goodbyes. So until next time, I hope you stay safe. Toodaloo. Toodaloo. What was that?